who failed to regularize their status. This follows the expiration of the January 5, 2026 deadline set under the Digitally Electronic, Online and Non-Traditional Consumer Lending Regulations 2025. According to the FCCPC, this enforcement is designed to instill market discipline, shield complaint operators from unfair competition, and most importantly, safeguard consumers from abusive, deceptive, or unlawful practices. The agency emphasized that these actions are necessary to maintain regulatory certainty in Nigeria's digital lending market, with the ultimate goal of promoting transparency and consumer confidence without disrupting legitimate business activity. On today's edition of Nigeria Today, we examine the impact of these regulations on the lending ecosystem and what they mean for the average Nigerian borrower. Thanks for joining us on Nigeria Today. I am Eucharia Clinton. Now, with me in the studio, to talk about this regulating online lending operations is Ahmed Abubakar Tanimu. He's a public affairs analyst and also a former banker. He's also a legal practitioner. It's a pleasure to have you on Nigeria Today.
Thank you for having me.
And joining us via Zoom is Haniel Jafaro. He's an IT and cybersecurity expert. It's a pleasure to have you on Nigeria Today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I'll start with you, Tanimu. Tell us, how significant will this move be, this move by the FCCPC?
The move is very, very significant. It's timely. Let me just share a typical example for you. If you go online, maybe on the social media, you will see them advertising erroneous and fictitious adverts. They will tell you if you borrow 1 million, or if you borrow 100,000, you will pay 105 naira in total. But it's not true. The interest is compounding. The interest is around maybe 30% at times, and they will just give a fraction, which is completely erroneous. If you make an attempt by actually going on their application to now say, okay, you want to borrow 100,000, you are not paying anything less than 130,000 within that same period. But they've been able to get online content creators to be giving false information, erroneous communication, and it will lure a lot of Nigerians, because the moment you have a challenge, maybe your salary is delayed for whatever reason, financial challenge, we all know how things are difficult at the moment. You'll be lured. You not say, oh, if you've seen an advert that what is 4,000 or 5,000 that you cannot pay, then you'll be keying. You will now key into the program. By the time you avail the loan, then you are already pressed. You are neck deep into it. You are now seeing an interest rate of about 30,000 for 100,000 that you collected. Even if you pay early, there's no that they want to give you a special consideration. And you need to look at the effect. They've broken marriages. They've caused a lot of traumas. I've handled a case where because of default, they sent messages to the innocent, the person that took money from them. They sent to all his contact that is a kidnapper. There's one, they even sent his picture that he's having HIV. So you know, what is the connection of you being a kidnapper, being an HIV? They harass the living daylight out of you. That is no longer a business model, and we should never allow it. So FCCPC, they've given them enough time. A lot of them are not regulated, because you see the jurisdiction is online, so it's not that you have a working bank, a physical structure is online. Yes. So because of that, a lot of people are easily exposed to too many dangers. So it's a good thing that the government now is now coming in. They've set out certain regulations in line with the powers of the FCCPC, and they are coming hard on those. We expect to see clampdowns, we expect to see arrests, we expect to see shutting down, we expect to see humongous fine, so that banking should be done in an ethical manner. Banking is a contract. The service providers are into the business of financial mediation, whereby they take from the surpluses and they give those in need for an interest. but it must be ethical, it must be professional, people's fundamental rights. People should know what they are going into and they must be protected.
Thank you very much, Tanimu. Now, Jafaru, Tanimu had just said that the jurisdiction is online, and you, from the online perspective, the move by the FCCPC to sanitize the online lending operation, how possible can this be? Because sometimes I used to think that since it's online, to get these people will be a little bit difficult. Tell us, how possible is this to effect these regulations?
Okay, so thank you so much for having me once again. Well, as long as they have, well, you can't rule away. It's not possible for them to evade, even though they are online, they operate online. They still have a system that ties them to the infrastructure or the digital infrastructure that the country has. So whatsoever, they are not a microfinance bank. They are not a commercial bank. Neither are they regional or national bank. They are just an application or is a one man for some of them, a one man business trying to see how best they can exploit the current challenges of Nigerians. So because they don't have the licenses to operate as microfinance bank or as the regular commercial bank that we know, they are mandated by default to partner with some of these banks to be able to receive the funds, because they don't have the infrastructure to receive the funds directly. They would need to partner with either a microfinance bank or a commercial bank to be able to receive the funds. So any payment that is being made to an account. And if the bank has done its proper KYC, it means that whether they are online or physical, we can always have a direct access to them. That's one. Two, most of for those loan app that are registered, because I know fully well that there are some that are not registered. So, but for those that are registered with even the Corporate Affairs Commission, you can always, when opening account, there is now mandatory NIN. So you can always tie their NIN to the account, and with that, you know who's behind such acts if they begin to go outside the regulatory framework. So you can't, that they are online doesn't mean that you can't pinpoint their operations and also have who's behind their operations. But it can be complex looking at the Privacy Act and the privacy system that the bank operates, which makes it quite difficult for you to be able to extract certain information, especially when it has to do with transaction from the bank without the need for court order or warrant and the like. So, but beyond that, the possibility exists, but the process to that possibility is the challenge. So we need to see how to either streamline the process so that it's easier for us to be able to pinpoint who owns what. And we noticed it earlier in the year when Nigeria was removed from the EU high risk list. One of the reasons why Nigeria was removed from that list after the FATC removed our name from their grey list in October, EU updated theirs in January and removed ours. One of the reasons why they were able to remove our name from their high risk list was because of the fact that we can now easily identify who owns what business. So we can easily go online and use certain web application to identify who's the owner of a particular business. So now the question we begin to ask is, this loan app, are they a registered entity within the Nigerian context, or they're just coming to play their own role, looking at the way the country is and how they can evade some of this registration and also carry out business operations without being pinpointed. So we need to begin to look at how to streamline. But the possibility of going and pinpointing them and knowing who they are, who's behind it, I think that possibility exists. But the process to ensuring that that possibility becomes a reality is the challenge, and that's where I think we should stress on and focus on as a country.
Okay, Thank you very much, Haniel. Now Jafaro, looking at the laws and regulations we already have, are they kind of adequate to effectively oversee these digital loan platforms?
You know, because we live in a society that is always transcending, things are evolving, so things, we have so many novel challenges. The law has always been there. We have the Boyfare Act, we have the creation, the establishment act of FCCPC, and now they've come up with a regulation. In fact, they've given them deadline that for those that are yet to comply with certain innovation, that this new regulation. So this new regulation has equally catered for some of these challenges in terms of identifying where they practice, in terms of having some safeguards, in terms of how consumers will be protected. The new regulation covers a whole range of areas. Once it is implemented to the fullest, the Nigerians will begin to see the gains, because now there will be sanctions to irresponsible form of banking, unlike before that they do their armchair banking with a lot of shenanigans. But now there's consequences, monetary sanctions for some of these challenges and abuses that we have identified. The regulation has been made. The regulation is about to be implemented. The timeline has, since January 5th, has and so now we are just set to see action from FCC. We see a lot of online lending platform being shut down. You see a lot of them being taken out because all the necessary framework has been put in place. So the issue of law has never been a challenge. We have enormous laws in our gamut of law that can take care of all these challenges. What is more important now is the implementation and the effects. So we should all put our hands on deck to support FCCPC so that they'll be able to implement. By the time they make one or two banks as examples, one of these online lending platform, people will now begin to have more courage in the. We don't expect the CBN. That's why we have to commend the FCCPC for taking that initiative. Very soon we'll begin to see tangible results.
You just made a comment now. You talked about full implementation. How do we ensure full implementation? Because we have a lot of regulations and policies, laws that are yet to be implemented. And
Absolutely.
we still see defaulters here and then.
Sure.
You know, so how do we ensure full implementation?
For that, you see, like part of the novel area and a new concept that has been introduced, that just like you have banks now increasing their share capital, it's from that share capital that anytime any bank misbehaves, the CBN can simply go into their deposited funds to take out money in form of sanction. And so it's the same thing now that is now being applicable to some of these lending platform. They will be required to deposit certain money. They will be required to engage in special registration, whereby they know who to be held accountable. They know who to go after in terms of any incidences of abuse. So the implementation is a gradual thing, but at least it has started. So gradually, those found wanting, you see sanctions being implemented on their activities, and it will go a long way. And as they are doing it, they will continue to improve on the system. More regulations are being expected as the challenges and demands warrant. So we are hopeful, but you see, we all know the role they play. We cannot just completely negate and completely take them out. They are important, but the way they do the business is what is of concern.
But there are also some real ones, at least some of us have been able to use them.
It comes in handy instead of going to all the to regular bank documentation. Here, this one you don't need to know anybody, and you assess it. So it has its gains, but the way they go about it is what is at stake now. What the issue are, some of the abuses, whereby when there is default, you don't take laws into your hand. No law gives you the right to go to somebody sending text messages to people's contacts that Mr. A is indebted to the person, Mr. A is a criminal, Mr. A is a kidnapper. There is nothing, no law allows for that. That is no longer a business model. They've gone out of the realm of ethical business to the realm of criminality. And now, with this regulation, sanctions will easily be implemented. The banks are responsible, the online lending platform, they are responsible for those people they recruit as debt recovery agents, for those people that will call people, insult the living daylights out of them just because they are in default of a day or two. Some is as a lot of system glitches. You have money in your account, but because the whole platform is not synchronized, in a regular bank, once your account is funded and the obligation has matured, the system will automatically debit your account. You have some platform where you have money in your account. The platform, because they are in partnership with the online platform, let me use one of the institutions, for example. You've taken money from a different platform, but you are servicing that transaction through another platform. Those other platforms have placed your money in an interest yielding arrangement. So by the time your obligation matured on this other side, your account will still be in debit because those other ones already fixed it. So this regulation will tend to regulate some of this. There will be consequences if they do not check your account to be sure that it has funding and they've not been able to debit at no fault of yours. So it's a welcome development. We are expecting to see a lot of changes.
Haniel, earlier Tanimu mentioned, shaming and unethical debt recovery practices often associated with these loan apps. Now, how can these phased enforcement specifically tackle this? Because we've had experiences, like he rightly mentioned. Sometimes you see they will send you some kind of, because of the loan you collected, probably you've not paid. Maybe you are even in default for maybe 1 or 2 months. And you see some family members calling you from far and wide, asking you what happened. We got some kind of messages and all of that. Those kinds of embarrassment. And so how can these, this new enforcement, this regulation, face out all of this?
Okay, so one of the challenges that many persons, or generally one of the things that we don't know is that while we are installing the application on our phones, we're actually giving them permission to our contacts. So they have access to your contacts, they have access to your messages, and some other, in fact, for some, they have access to your locations. And I don't think some of these permissions that they mandate, because they tell you that if you don't give them access, the app tells you that if you don't give it access to these things, it means that you don't need their app, so you won't be able to use the app. So because of that, you are mandated to grant them that access, and by granting them that access, you are invariably shooting yourself on the foot, because when the time comes for repayment and there's default, they can easily access your. In fact, they don't just access it immediately; they have access. They download your contacts to a system that is within their reach. So even though you decide to uninstall the app afterwards, they still have access to your contacts, they still have access to some of your messages. And this is contrary to the Privacy Act that is largely being implemented by the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. So the Data Protection Act largely, it frowns at acts like this, because there are rights that we are expected to have when laying hold of our data. One of it is the right to know what exactly you are taking and how long you are taking it. And we should be able to reach out to you as an organization to say, okay, delete my details that is with you. But the challenge now that we are facing with the loan apps and the loan shark organizations, if they are, is that we don't even know how to reach them, because they are largely 100% online. And because they are largely 100% online, it's quite difficult for you to be able to reach them. But notwithstanding the implementation, I personally think, this is my personal view, I think what we're doing is reactive, because apps like that are not expected to function without registration. That we are even calling them to come and register, or letting them know to come and register while they are already functioning. It's a system. It's a reactive structure. It is not addressing the issue. We should mandate it that before anyone that wants to begin to function in this wise goes up to upload their application, whatever the case is, online, or with all these app directory, they should ensure that they go to FCCPC to register. And with that, they are vetted and ascertained to be an organization that is registered. They are ascertained to be an organization that is legal, and they also have what it takes to be able to function in the capacity they intend to function. But as it is now, somebody that really doesn't have 100,000 naira can just start a loan application and begin to rip off Paul to pay Peter, and at the end of the day is amassing wealth of Nigerians without us doing the due diligence that we're supposed to do before they start functioning. So I think he's reactive. I believe he's reactive, and this is just my personal view, but I believe he's reactive, and there are better ways we can address this to ensure that they don't even go into the market and exploit Nigerians before they start functioning. Notwithstanding that they are calling for registration, because this registration thing is not as though that this is not the first time FCCPC is calling for registration. They did this last year. So what happened with the registration last year? They delisted some persons. Now, are we sure? How sure are we that those that were delisted were actually did not change their names to come back on a different application with a different identity? So these are some of the things that needs to be vetted before an application is even approved to even go on Google or Apple Play Store for Nigerians to be able to download and begin to request for loan, knowing fully well that their rate is exorbitant and just too much for the regular Nigerians, because what a regular banking system would charge you as interest for a year is what a bank, or should I call it a non-financial institution now, because they don't fall into the category, but let's work with them as a financial institution, even though they are not under the regulation of CBN. So what a regular Nigerian bank will charge you as interest for 1 year is what this loan shark and no app guys will charge you as interest for 2 weeks. That's exorbitant. That's ripping off Nigerians from their hard-earned money. So I think we need to redesign a system that makes this work for both the government and also the citizens, because from the citizens' angle, I think there is nothing they can do apart from ensuring that the government putting the right policies in place to make sure that these guys align well.
Of course, it raised a very important
germane
point there,
sure.
that this is reactive.
Absolutely.
We should be proactive.
Sure.
So what would you recommend in that regard?
We need to work more on IT infrastructure. You see, for proper regulation, the regulators should be able to have access to the back end. Over time, that is what is lacking even with the regular banks. They feed the regulators with the information they want the regulators to have access. Most of the regulators, including the CBN, they've not really have a lot of capacity building in terms of having access to the back end, whereby as regulator, I can go into the server of the regular banks to know what they are doing. So the FCCPC should work more on the IT infrastructure so that you have the capacity of accessing the back-end server of those online and digital lending platform. With that, they will be able to see how much they are charging. They should have a dashboard whereby they should be able to control the entire activity. Already they've created some novel concept whereby individuals, consumer can have access. They've tried to be proactive this time around by listing certain institutions having meet all the regulatory requirements. They've been registered. So people will now know that before you access a loan on a lending platform, check the FCCPC platform to know if they are duly registered. That is at least one is done. But they should go beyond that. They should go beyond just doing the registration aspect. They should be able to have very intensive monitoring and evaluation. If an organization or an entity knows that they are being closely monitored, they will put their hands to deck to ensure that they perform optimally. So we are expecting to see good tidings, and then we commend the FCCPC for taking this noble initiative and to bring sanity into our lending balance.
Thank you very much, Ahmed Abubakar Tanimu, Public Affairs Analyst, former banker and legal practitioner. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And also a very big thank you to Haniel Jafaru, IT and cybersecurity expert. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you so much,